All right, hey, you got episode 107 of the Church Digital podcast powered by Stadia Church Planting. Man, I love saying that, powered by Stadia Church Planting. It's been an awesome, wrapping up our first year here with the Church Digital with me, Jeff Reed, working at Stadia as their director of digital church planting. And I love what I get to do where we're helping Stadia and myself, we are helping plant digital-only expressions of church. We're working with a cohort, 4 planters right now who are out there getting ready to plant, to launch, to start these digital communities to reach physical people. It's awesome. Love it. So much is coming out of this. If you're interested in more about what digital planting looks like or how Stadia can help you plant your digital church, do me a favor. Go to this website, thechurch.digital/planting. thechurch.digital/planting. On there's tons of blogs, podcasts, interviews, videos, resources, streams, even an ebook you can read that teaches you about what a digital church plant, a digital-only expression of church could be and how you can plant it. Phenomenal, phenomenal stuff. Even it gives you access to get connected with Stadia so that you can be part of the cohort and so that Stadia can help you launch this digital-only expression of church. So somebody out there, you're wrestling with this. Take an opportunity and let Stadia come along and help you plant that digital-only church. By the way, we're going to be talking a lot in this podcast about digital-only church planting. As a matter of fact, we're bringing in Jate Earhart. Jate, probably one of my favorite guests that we've ever had here on the podcast. Super chill guy, really knows his stuff, has a church staff background. He's really in history as a video editor, but really has had this passion to utilize digital methods to connect with video gamers, right? And it's a whole, I hesitate to call it, but I'll go and say it, an unreached people group of video gamers in America. There's an opportunity to really tap in and to reach this generation, this group, this demographic of people that really have never set foot into the building, nor will they ever set foot into the building. And so Jate stepped up and launched a church, a digital-only expression of church called Love Clan. Now, you can actually go back through past episodes. We have pretty much documented from day one the launch of his church. I think the first podcast we ever did with him, he was debating whether or not to actually do this. Like he had not actually committed towards launching this church. And we've just, through 3, 4, 5, 6 different podcast episodes, probably really documented his growth process of how he went from not sure if he was going to launch a church to launching a church to creating disciples to now shifting and evolving that ministry as he's learned more about what a digital-only church needs to be and maybe overcoming some of the challenges that he was facing. And so phenomenal conversation, super chill. At the beginning, the guy's like eating lunch and we're literally sitting down just talking, just so relaxed in this. And it's one of the reasons I love Jate and love the ministry that he's doing. So, hey, for this conversation, we are bringing in, like I said, Jate Earhart, I guess lead pastor. Let's call him the guy that's running Love Clan, and myself, Jeff, with the Church Digital and Stadia Church Planting, in a conversation that I'm simply calling the different type of person that you reach running a digital church. Okay, everybody, here y'all go. Catch me up a little bit then here. Like what's going on in life? What's ministry looking like? What's the story here behind Love Clan?
Well, yeah, like Love Clan's doing well. And a good portion of Love Clan was the Discord. And I think right now I'm in a trial period, or not even a trial period at this point, but I would say that was the goal. Was when I moved, I was just going to try streaming and see what happened with that. And I set everything up. Like I have a really nice setup now, but I kind of started to set this up. I set up the TV and some basic stuff. And then the day that I was going to go live on Mixer, which was my main live streaming platform, it died. The day I set it up. And I said it was actually awkward because if I had found out that Mixer had died a day earlier, I wouldn't have set things up for live stream. I would have set up this whole room differently. And if it had been a day afterwards, I would have already been streaming on Mixer, and I might have just been like, what's the point then? And just quit. But because I had already set it all up and hadn't had the chance to like go through the process of setting up Mixer, I said, well, I'm going to use it. Like, I'm not going to just have that time be wasted. So I might as well go back to Twitch. And so I like tried Twitch, and it's been great since then. And that I didn't expect for it to be my like full-time thing at the time that I started doing it. But just found other people that I could connect with who were in the same mindset. And that's continued up from then. And so Love Clan as a Discord is somewhat in a like self-sustaining mode. And if it was really declining without me, I think I would be more like, I need to do a whole lot there. But as a community, it's still like what it is. And it's really been a community for a long time. So like there's a lot of people in there that are able to help keep that going. But I've needed this time to really like explore a new avenue, which was streaming on Twitch. And that's where I'm seeing a lot of growth. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it.
So you had Love Clan previously was last time we talked, you were doing the disciple making, you were doing the four the 4 fields, the 3/3. You were doing that kind of E3 disciple making process, and yes. You're doing that in digital space. Are you telling me, even before we get to the streaming, are you telling me you got to the place where like that disciple making process digitally is now replicating itself to the point that you've let it go and it's kind of operating on its own?
I'd say for a while it was. I wish I could say that it was just like spiraling out of control and I don't even need to be there anymore, and so on and so forth. That'd be the dream. I can't say that's true in good faith, but it's more like this whole thing is very experimental as is. And so where it's at is I realized that it's actually not that hard to get Christian gamers into a Christian Bible study. Christian gamers into a Christian gaming Bible study is not even that. It's not even that difficult. And like, if you message a couple of Christians and say like, hey, would you like to study the Bible together? Then like they might join. They might not keep going though. And it may not really be life transformational. And I say that with as much like grit as I can, because it's like that's sort of was the thought, is like, how can I get as many Christian gamers into a Discord as possible so that we could have these like Bible studies, and that will be really meaningful because we'll have these Bible studies and we can do them online and across borders. I still believe that. I still think that's important. And I think even more important was the discipleship factor of that, which was the idea that they would then start groups and that they would tell their friends and that they would grow and so on. And we tried that for a while, and we had, I think we had like 4 groups at one point in time. But once I started streaming, I just saw ways that we could start to reach people from the beginning. I had in the step cuts, which is something we talked about earlier, but like a long time ago. But the very first step in our step cuts, which are taking a next step for the thing, is like each step leads up to another step. And so if you can't tell what the next step somebody should take is, then they probably won't know what it is. And that first step was always live streaming. Like an atheist would watch my live stream and would be interested in that community. And so then they would get plugged into the Discord. That's like always been there, even before we did live streaming as a thing. It just was the natural process. Isn't that somebody would first join your Discord, they would first watch Twitch. That's just how it just normally happens. And I would add a step in there before that now, that I would play a game with somebody and they like the way I communicated, or they like the way I played, or they like the way that I interacted with them in some way that led them, that they were like, oh, I'd be willing to watch that guy's stream. And if your name is Jate Live on the game, then they assume you're a streamer and they go watch your live stream. And that person would then say, oh, like, I really like the community here. I like this atmosphere. I like the vibes that are going on. And then they might go to the Discord. So it's kind of like there's still that progression. And I think we needed a solid community in Discord first before that would make sense to be that ramp on. And so, all that to say, where I'm at now with Twitch, I'm seeing the fruition of what we had discussed before, of how we're doing the small groups, how we're even had the wording, how we're piecing these things together. A lot of that's turned into the same thing, but now let's live stream it, and let's make sure that the focus on people that have never read the Bible before. And I can't say that was the case with Discord. We had some people that were there that had never read the Bible before. But if you message somebody randomly on Discord and say, do you want to have a Bible study with me? The answer will probably be no, unless they're a Christian. But for me, I don't call it Bible study anymore. I call it Bible discussion. And I'm very clear that like this is a chance for you to study the Bible with somebody who, I shouldn't even say, I'm having a hard time saying it, not study, but discuss the Bible with somebody that you trust, that you know cares for you, and not at a church, because chances are that you're not going to go to a church. You know, that's partially the reason that I ended up leaving the church that I was at, is I just realized I was going to have such a hard time, not that it's impossible, but I was going to have a really hard time reaching the people that I needed to reach just being at my church. I needed to be where gamers were. And so that meant like I was going to quit my job and go stream full time. And I didn't even think streaming full time. I just thought I was going to be active like in the gaming community full time. And now it's streaming, and we have crazy stories. We should probably talk about some of the stories. Like some of them are just nuts, but I'm getting to have like really awesome conversations on a daily basis with non-Christians. And some of those conversations are about God, and especially on Saturdays when we do our Bible discussions, they're always about God. But just letting people know that you love them, in a community where people don't usually feel loved. And if they do, it's because of their skill. And just to let them know, regardless of your skill, you're a person and you deserve love. I'm going to love you. And that goes a long ways for people. And then to be able to turn that around and say, by the way, I don't expect anything from you. I don't expect you to love me in return. I get my love from God. And because of that overwhelming love, of course, I'm going to love you in return. And that, like, it gives you an in for like why they should love God, rather than it being like, we talked about this, I think last time too, is the why is so much more important than the what. Mm-hmm. And with streaming, especially, if you don't have your why set on the right thing, your what will just be determined by whatever metrics Twitch decides are important. And they'll say average view count is what's important, or because they like revenue. They like their ad revenue. And I've disabled that, I want to just, we're skipping into a lot of different things. I get that. So I'm sorry that I'm kind of ping-ponging, but it's just a lot of thoughts like all at once of why are we streaming? And the reality is because in Discord, we had a lot of people we did a poll, and it was 95% Christian at one point in time. And we focused to get away from that. We didn't want to just be Christian because we weren't reaching people at that point. And we might as well be the revolving door of churches we're just another revolving door church where people come into our church because they didn't like their local church and they said gaming's bad. And so now they join our Discord church. And it's like, it's not the point. We want to reach people.
So it sounds like, I'm even just trying to reconcile this because, you're at a different level when it comes to the digital, and I love what you're doing. Even Twitch to me I'm not as comfortable in that platform. I've loved watching you and some other friends that have now been in the space. I don't know that I even totally understand what I'm watching, although my kids are enthralled by it. But when it sounds like is that you had a community in context of Discord. And now it was a Christian strong community. You weren't getting a lot of outsiders, a lot of people who were cold to Christ really coming in. It's easy to do a Christian Bible study for Christian gamers, but to include lost people, the evangelism, you were really missing the front door for the community to allow people who are cold to Christ in. And so now you're utilizing Twitch really as that front door to bring people into the community. And it sounds like is that working? Like, are lost people coming in? What does that relationship look like? Because you got a community full of 99s, a lot of people that are Christian gamers, and now you're bringing in atheists and lost people. And I was watching the other day, and one of the people was like, Satan loves me or something like that, and it was like, okay, that's interesting. Now everything was above board healthy, but how is that community now looking now that you've attached like the Twitch front door to it?
Right. Yeah. And I've actually, because, I think people, it's hard. I should say that maybe the way that I do things is not always the best way to do things, but I realize that I'm in the experimental zone. And like, as somebody who's trying new things, I'm going to have to do it a little differently because I don't know what's going to be successful. And so I 100% am just trying things, and I'm willing to like switch on a dime if something doesn't work. So maybe learn from my experience and don't do it exactly how I do it. I think I'm open to be that. And so my thing with the Discord is that I didn't use it to promote the Twitch. And when I decided that whenever I started streaming on Twitch, I didn't name the name for our channel Love Clan. It's Jate Live. It's a separate. In my mind, it's almost a separate. It should be. It is a separate entity. Now that being said, I'm doing it almost as if. How would I? The reason I did that originally is I have tried in the past in other organizations I was in doing it as the organization, but the problem is I think what you do outside of your channel is almost as important, if not more important, than what you do during your channel. So like for sure in Twitch is not discoverable. So your YouTube channel is going to be more important for people finding your channel. Your TikTok, more important. Your Twitter, more important. Like what you do on those platforms lead people to your Twitch. So Twitch by itself, there's a lot of people that think if I just live stream for 7 hours, then people find me and I'll grind it out. And you're better off spending more time on these other platforms, finding people and having them come to same thing with gaming, like gaming and then bringing people into the games, like saying, hey guys, I'm streaming. Like if you want to find me, I'm on this channel, and then they'll find you that way. A lot of this is kind of like above board Twitch stuff, and maybe not as important for the discussion about like using Twitch as a platform, but that is true. And so I didn't want to pull people from just the Discord and just say, come on into my Twitch and like we'll make this thing happen. Mostly because I didn't want it to just be a Christian hangout.
Yeah.
And so
is there intentionality there towards like that's almost a good idea when it comes towards multiplication, because now Susie wants to go do something on Twitch. Joe wants to go drive stuff from TikTok. So now you've got 3, 4, 5, 10 different front doors that are all feeding into your engagement pathway, discipleship, whatever community where you're doing disciple making. That's actually smart, Jate.
Yeah, thanks. No, you got it, because what we did in the last one is I did that same thing, but I used it as a multiplication. And in my mind, it was more multiplication because we'll call it I won't name the name of the organization that I worked with when we did this, but like say I named it Love Clan, and I let other people stream on Love Clan. Okay, well now they're growing because they're streaming and our platform is growing, and that's not a bad way to go. And I know the organizations that currently do that. I actually think that can be effective. But you do hit a certain point where like not everybody can stream at the same time then, like you will hit a certain point where you're like, well, there's only so many hours in a day, and like this person can stream till this point, as opposed to like, let's say you want 1,000 people streaming, sorry, like one channel is not going to cut it. And you have to deal with, and this is important, you do have to deal with how do you distribute funds that come in through that? And I'll even go further to say, how do you distribute when somebody really puts in the time and the effort to grow something and somebody else doesn't? And you have to like say, well, this person put in more time and effort, so blah, blah, blah. Or is it just pure stream hours? Or what if this person puts in $200 to get a good camera, but that person doesn't? And it just starts to be this like that kind of a thing. The other side of that is, let's say that person, what if you want to go, and you should do this, what if you want to go watch somebody else's stream and see what they're doing and encourage them? Now you're encouraging them, but you're encouraging them as you'd have to make your own account to like be your persona, so that you're not doing it as Love Clan, and it just gets more messy than I think it needs to, rather than just being like, hey, we will partner with you. We're going to give you funds or whatever you need to like get your stream going. But
it's interesting. I just got a stat yesterday in the email. It's kind of parallel to this. Spotify is claiming that they broadcast, that they're responsible, the Anchor platform that's attached to Spotify, 80% of podcasts. 80% of the podcasts Spotify is claiming ownership of. And what's interesting is the podcasts, they're not these giant podcasts. They're tiny, they're small. It's like the 10 listeners, the 20 listeners. And so Spotify's claiming this title, not because of creating like the major broadcasts. It's the bunch of the smaller broadcasts. By the way, the Church Digital grew 450% in 2020. Thank you for a lot of listeners out there. That aside, moving on, it's this phenomenal idea of in digital. For me, when I look at digital churches, and I think we've had this conversation, I don't envision like a virtual giga-sized building where it's tens of thousands of people. Right. For me, the win of a digital church is getting small people to reach their small circles and multiplying out that way. It's more of a multiplication approach as opposed to like a huge gathering of people digitally. How have you seen, because I know you believe that. I know you feel that. How have you seen that like reconcile out through Love Clan, through the Twitch and the things that you're doing here recently? Yeah.
So that's, I want to lead by example. I've always done that. And so I'm like, I want to show that something is possible first. And maybe I go a little too far in a direction first before like, rather than doing like, come with me and we'll do kind of a thing. But there are already that I can think of at least 2, I think maybe 3 people from Love Clan who have started streaming like after I started streaming that are in the same mindset. One of those is already doing the same way we're doing Bible discussions. So that's already happening. That's why I say it's like a lot of that was somebody that also did was a part of our Love Clan Discord when we did that and also ran a group there. And so now he's seeing how it's working in Twitch and like we're moving in that direction. And I'll add the reason that we did it on Twitch is interesting. Like the original reason that I even decided to do Twitch actually, or to do live streaming, I guess is maybe a better way to put it. I had a friend, we went to Japan together, with a group of nine people. We all went to Japan and I've never met him in person. I met him online and we hung out, played games together all the time online. And then when I went to Japan, I was like, do you want to come? And he came with us. That relationship has been like, I've been working on that guy for a very long time. He's always on my heart. He's always on my mind, praying for him all the time. And he's an atheist. I mean, he's been an atheist for a long time. I think he grew up in the church, but then he was like, no. And, I invited him. He's actually a huge fan of Love Clan and a huge fan of what we're doing, because he's like, it's really cool that you're reaching gamers and that you're actually thinking this way. And he likes the heart behind it. He's not there, it's not his thing. And I invited him to our small group in Discord, and he said no. And the only reason he said no is because he said, I can't dedicate that much time to something that I don't believe in. And like that honestly changed my whole thinking, because I was like, it kind of makes sense. That's why they're not coming to church either. Like, why would you go to church if it'd be the same thinking that they're going to come to church as being like, well, when was the last time that you stepped in a mosque? Like, and how would you feel if you went to a mosque? Like, it would be awkward. Like we've just normalized it because we grew up in it, that it's just normal to go to church, but like, it's not normal. And especially if you've never grown up in it. And so for him, he's like, I am awkward around people. I won't know the subject, and that would be difficult. And I don't want to spend that much time on something I don't believe in. So it's which is just, we have that kind of relationship. It's been, 7-9 years that we've known each other, and we decided we're going to just be very upfront about everything. And so like, thank goodness he said that, because then I was like, that's a good point. So like, let me make something that is already established where I'm live streaming games. I'll just keep playing video games, and we'll discuss the Bible. And if you want to, you can have that as it can be on your second monitor. It can be in the corner. You can minimize it. You can just hear what's going on, but it will give you a chance to hear what I believe in a place that you're already at anyway. He's a moderator in my channel. He watches all the time. You can just watch me play video games and talk about the Bible. And if you have questions, if something does come up that you're like, I have heard that before, but I don't get what they're talking about, then you can type that in chat. But if you want, you can just be completely in the background, and that's okay. And I think I've said this every time that we've been on here, the best thing about online, and this has become more and more true. I think I said this first on a podcast and I didn't even know what I was saying. Like, I just said it and then I like thought about it afterwards, but it's just become more true. The best and worst thing about online is anonymous, being anonymous, having people.
Anonymity is the word.
Anonymity is the word. Yeah.
There you go.
Like being the ability to just disappear is the best and worst thing, because people will just be there for a year. You know them, they're active, whatever, and they just disappear and you have no idea what happened to them. And the scariest thing is when that happens with people that constantly we are praying for about anxiety and depression, and that person just disappears and you don't know where they went. I hate that. And like, that keeps me up at night. But the best thing about it is that there are non-Christians who are just like, I don't know what's going on. I want some information, and I'm not going to go to a church to get it. And I'm not going to talk to my friends about it because I don't want anybody to know that I'm even thinking about it. But just tell me up front what it is that you believe in, and like, let's talk about that. And we can do that in like an actual meaningful way.
All right. I want to back up.
Yeah, we got to skip
a little bit but you're, man, I love talking with you because I think like you think. And so like, I'm totally keeping up with you. And some listener is probably like, what?
Yeah. Sorry if I go.
No, it's beautiful. we live in a, maybe this is up for debate. Maybe different races treat this differently. I don't mean to like drop a mic here. We live in a post-Christian society, at least here in America. And in if America, we're not like,
Japanese culture, it is not. I'll just say that it's 2% Christianity, maybe 1%. And they've never had Christianity. It's not like they had it, but it was like, it just skipped right over. And it's so interesting talking about Jesus with them there. Anyway, so yes, in America.
Yeah. You made me just take a tangent. I'll come back to what I was going to say. My head exploded. You'll appreciate this comment. I was doing a think tank with Send Institute. That's Ed Stetzer, Daniel Yang. I don't mean to drop names, but I'm in a think tank here. It was for young missiologists and confession. The definition of young was at the age 40 or below. I'm actually 43, so I'm not sure I really belonged in the room with a bunch of young missiologists. I guess I'm now an old missiologist. I'm bald with gray in my beard. But there's a guy, Sam George, my head exploded. and we're going to have him on the podcast. He was talking about this idea of the problem, and he's Indian. I think he's done the majority of his ministry in India. I actually bought a couple books while he was talking, and we kind of debriefed afterwards at some point. But he said this word. He says, the problem with American Christianity is that it's incomplete. And he went on to say, you really want to understand the book of Acts? Go live 6 months in India, then read the book of Acts. Go spend a year in China, then read the book of Acts. He's like, the problem with the American church is that it's isolated itself from the rest of the world in Christianity standpoints. And instead of trying to influence the nations, maybe we need to listen to the nations and start to grow from there. And he went on and started talking about, and I'm going to use terms that you know probably better than me, the ecclesia being the gathered, scattered church, as opposed to diaspora, which is more of the scattering of the gathered church. And that, and so I'm immediately hearing like digital implications. It's phenomenal.
Right.
And a little bit, later on in the think tank, somebody talks about me being digital church planting guy. And it's funny, Sam George messages me, through Zoom. You do digital churches? I want to talk to you. I want to learn from you. And I'm like, are you kidding me? I want to learn from you. You just blew my mind like an hour ago. This is great. Yeah. So we're going to have that conversation just from a international, global perspective. So much power there. But let me come back to really what I wanted to get to. I'm intrigued a little bit, and all this is going to fit together. It's going to be awesome. I'm intrigued a little bit by your point of when you're talking about isolation, anonymity. You're dealing with people, sometimes they disappear. You don't know what's going on. Let's be honest. That happens in the physical realm as well. And so, but you've got people, that struggle with depression, some of those things, and they just disappear. I want to pull on a thread here. So you're broadcasting, you're not breathing the same air molecules. You're dealing with people in text chat, maybe voice chat, maybe face-to-face via, a webcam, something like that. But I imagine that's probably not the majority.
Right.
You authentically know people well enough to know that they're struggling with depression. Like you are that engaged with people in a digital space that your soul is struggling when they're going through hard times like this. I've dealt with enough people that say that's a crock of bull, that you can't have that you can't have that level of relationship digitally. Now, look, you're 20 something. I don't think you've ever told me your age, and I'm not going to hold a gun to your head and make you do it. But you're of that generation. Is that level of engagement, of relationship, is that common at that age? Do you see it younger? Do you see it older? Like, talk to me a little bit here about the authentic level relationships that you're getting out of Twitch, out of Discord.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm millennial, but I've noticed this even more with Gen Z. I think somebody said this to me. They said like Gen Z is the hardest to get attention for like 13 minutes. Like it's so difficult to get their attention. But if you can get the attention of a Gen Z person, which is the generation before or after mine, if you can get their attention for like 13 minutes, then you'll have them for longer than any other generation before that.
Wow.
Because like they trust you long enough for that short period of time that if you've lost them in that period, then you'll probably lose them in all of it. But if you keep them for that, then they assume that like, well, I'll just like, we'll go all in then, And what I've noticed is it's funny because you say like, wow, you've known people long enough that they would be willing to be open about anxiety and depression. And I'm like, that's usually the like first or second thing that people might say. I mean, it's pretty quick. People are pretty okay with doing that. And the reason I think is because it's anonymous. And I don't want to downplay that though, because there are people that I've known for now 4 years who one of our first conversation was, I'm dealing with anxiety. But because of how I responded to that person dealing with anxiety, that person knew that they could trust our conversations. They knew that we could trust whatever, and that they could be open about a lot of other stuff. The anxiety maybe wasn't even that. It's not like they're not holding that close to their heart. They wear it on their sleeves. Yeah, I'm anxious. Everybody's anxious. I have anxiety. Yeah, I mean, like just like everybody else online, we all have anxiety. And it's like, hey, I'm having a hard time sleeping. I actually need to get to sleep, but I just thought I'd pop in the chat, and I'm actually dealing with depression, and it just sucks. Could you pray for me? That happens like regularly. And if I pray for somebody like 3 times, that person will usually join a Bible discussion. That just tends to be the case. Like, I will pray for somebody 3 times before they join our Bible discussions. And they will say, I have this thing that I'm dealing with. I have that as a thing in my channel, by the way. It's the, like, you can spend points, and it's this whole deal, but I just make it very obvious that, like, I want to pray for you. And that's my most important thing. As like when I'm just streaming in a normal day. On Saturdays, we have our, like, we're doing it about the Bible. But during the week, my goal is to pray for people. So at one point in time, this is kind of important, because at one point in time, when I talk about metrics, at the very beginning, somebody asked for me to pray for them. And I said, yes, I will pray for you. Let me pause real quick, and I'm gonna pause so that I can get real serious and I can pray about that, because that's actually really important, what you asked me to pray for. And it was about anxiety and a whole bunch of stuff. And I remember doing that, and I had it up where I could see the number of viewers, and I watched the number of viewers drop. I think it dropped to like 5 people, something like that. And I remember thinking, my first thought was, well, first it was like, that sucks. These guys just left because they didn't want to hear me pray for somebody. But then I was like, maybe I should word it differently next time. And when I had that thought, I had to take a sudden switch, because I realized that I was not basing what I was doing, or I was about to not base what I was doing off of a metric that wasn't even a part of my success, like what I considered success. What I considered success, if there was no viewers and I got to pray for somebody about something that was very important, and I made a connection with that person in a way that they hadn't made a connection before, that was a success for me. That was a successful stream. And if I had 100 viewers, but I didn't get to do that, would that really even be a successful stream? Like, it's kind of my mindset. Just, that's why I say it's really, really important that you have to say what's important, because once I realized that, I removed it. I can't even see how many viewers are live whenever I'm streaming now, because I don't want to change what I'm saying based off of the number of people that are watching. And I don't want to know if a bunch of people leave because of something I say. I would much rather just be like, yeah, like the chat is more important. I do look at those metrics after the fact. I'll look and say like, wow, that's interesting. Like, we had this many people, and maybe I need to play a different game, or like there are some things that you can do to mitigate some of that. But I specifically don't want to not pray for somebody because I'm afraid that it'll affect my numbers. Or I don't want to not say something that needs to be said that's like, this is what the Bible says on what you just said, because I'm afraid it'll affect numbers. And when those discussions happen, that's usually where I would say the growth, like what you're talking about, where I'm really getting to know somebody. Yeah, like that happens pretty regularly. People are ready for me to pray for them. I've given people outs, I would say, with prayer, where I'll even say, hey, I pray for everybody at the end of every stream, but I'm saying during streams. I'll say, hey, I see what you're dealing with. You say, you've been telling us, like, you're dealing with anxiety and all this. As a Christian, the way that I best know to love you is to pray for you. I believe in a loving God who loves you more than even I can, and that cares about you, that knows the things that you're not sharing, that knows the things that I can never know, and that maybe I shouldn't even know, but that you know and that God knows. And so I want to pray for you. And if you don't believe in the power of prayer, that's fine. I would love to chat about that sometime. Or on Saturdays, we have a Bible discussion for people that have never studied the Bible, and you might be interested in joining that. But even if not, if you just read this as good vibes, that's totally fine with me. The Bible tells me to love God and to love people, and I love you. And so I want to do whatever it is that, is a loving thing for you. But know that I do believe in the power of prayer. So I'm going to pray for you. And that just kind of like, it just quickly tells people that, like, I'm not trying to convert you. I'm not trying to, trick you into like saying some word that like, that Jesus like sneaks into your heart or something. Like I'm just telling you up front, here's what I believe. Here's why I'm doing it. It's because I love you. And I'm going to show that I'm going to stop everything I'm doing during my stream. And I'm going to take the time to just pray for you. And that it speaks volumes. And that kind of, doing that for somebody will start a relationship pretty fast. And it's just possible online. Like, I don't know. Maybe that hopped around your question. I would say you just have more, like, I'll brushstroke some of what you just said with like, why is online? I think this is stuff we talked about before, but there's just more time is the biggest part of it. Actually count the minutes if you want to. You can count the number of minutes of time, the last time that you chatted with your best friend, and like how long you actually hung out together, even if in person. And we have an easy out because it's COVID, but even, after COVID, even when we're just hanging out with people, you just don't get a whole lot of time with people. And I get hours every day. I stream for like 10 hours a day, and I see a lot of the same people. So even if it's just with text chat, I just have more communication with them than you do. Like it just natural. Of course I do. Like I'm here doing this, and it does hit a certain point where there's so many people in chat that it's difficult for me to focus on one person. And I'm noticing that. And that's why I'm trying to get other streamers so that they can go and they're active too. If I'm not being active or engaging enough, we do game nights outside of maybe when I'm streaming. I go watch other streamers so that I'm having that relationship that's more face to face. It's not face to face, but like I can chat with them here and they chat with me here. And it's like, okay, I can put a face with it.
Yeah.
I find a lot of that does happen in private messages, but also building the community so that they focus on each other is big. Like one person in chat chatting with another person in chat and having that happen more than I'm just the medium. You guys need to chat with each other. And there's ways you can build that, but
it's, I've told the story a lot about somebody asked Seth Godin, one of the top marketing guys in the planet, probably right now, definitely America. But somebody asked him, how do I get my message heard around the world? The guy was trying to figure out what social media networks were valid to get a single message broadcasted around the planet. Seth didn't answer that question. Instead, he said, 1 billion people don't care about what you have to say. If you really want to be effective, tell the smallest number of people possible, and then get them to multiply that message, get them to tell somebody else. And they get them to tell somebody else. And so a million person, I don't know that maybe the world will see it. I'm sure, you know what, I take it back. The world will see a 1 million person church. The life churches or that's going to happen. I don't know that that's replicatable. But 100,000 churches of 10, that's on the verge of an explosion. And so, I love this, I love the transparency, Jate, of, sometimes the chat room gets too big and it's hard for us to really give individual attention. And so that's why we're multiplying out. That's why we're trying to get other people to stream so that we can just continually be keeping it at the level that we can handle in there. And so we can give people, adequate attention to that. I even love your heart. One of my questions was going to be evangelism. You just, went straight into that where you were, what I heard was almost a boil the frog slowly approach. You really can't do this quickly. Maybe it's not like the building, but the good news is online, you got time. You're streaming at all hours and you can build that relationship slowly. And instead of doing an event-based evangelism where you've got X number of minutes to get somebody to raise their hand to accept Christ, you've got time because you're building that relationship, and through that relationship, funneling over. Stuff like that's beautiful.
Yeah, and I don't even know what we consider slow is the other thing, because I'll tell this story. I think it's fine. I'm afraid to use like specific stories just because these are all things that are still happening. So yeah, I mean, take this with a don't, whatever. Anyway, there are, she's told me this is fine, and we've talked about this. There's a Satanist that comes to our Bible discussions. I just met her by we were chatting online. Like you said, there's somebody, you mentioned her, like Satan, whatever. She has lots of different accounts because they keep getting banned for having different things. And, but yeah, she's awesome. She has we had a big like 2-hour discussion, kind of, as I said, what can I call your name? And like, can I call you a different thing? Cause like, that's just kind of weird for me to be like, hey, Satan, how's it going? You know? So, we had that whole conversation, but it turned into like, yeah, why is that your name? Oh, well, I'm a Satanist. Oh, okay. Well, I guess that makes sense then, doesn't it? And, but through the like, I'm going into like seek first to understand and then to be understood. I was like, yeah, tell me about that. Like, what does that actually mean? Cause I've heard that before. Like, do you worship Satan? Like, what does that mean? And for her, she said, well, there's some people do, but for me, I don't actually believe Satan exists. Satan's actually just an image. It's a symbol, and it's a symbol for like anti-Judeo-Christianity. It's the idea of like, it's a symbol for anarchy. It's a symbol for being against society. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So then what do you actually believe then as your thing? Well, we believe in that your will and my will, we can have different wills, but as long as like we're all living our own truth, then it's okay. And compassion for everything. It's like, what? Like, yeah, that's a part of our thing. The guy that started it, he said, you don't want to just go into anarchy, but then not love each other. And so we're going to have 2 rules. One is that you do whatever you want, but also you have to have compassion for everybody. So compassion for everybody comes above even your own will. So if you want to hurt people, you can't do it because you need to have compassion for everybody. And that just like blew my mind, because I was just like, okay, that's not at all what I thought whenever I went down this hole of like, you're a Satanist. You just told me I was like, so are you a vegetarian then? Because you don't want to hurt? Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, I'm a vegetarian too. So, maybe for a different reason, but like, dang, like that's actually kind of interesting. So you have compassion for everybody. And as we started to talk, I was able to relate and say, hey, honestly, I kind of relate with that, because my faith is really boils down to all the laws and down to love God and love people. So we actually we both have the same law as like one of our main things is to love people. That's like a huge part of our faith. And the only thing is that I believe I also have love God, and you don't believe that God exists. And that makes sense that the path that you've taken is my will and your will. We all have our own will. If God doesn't exist, that actually makes sense to me. I just believe that God does exist, and so I'm going to follow God's will. And then we had that big, long discussion where we were actually able to come to an agreement, rather than saying, you're a Satanist, I'm a Christian, therefore we have nothing in common, into I just believe God exists and you don't. So like we have a ground that we can talk about in the future going forward. Wow. And she said, that's interesting. Then what if God exists, what kind of God is he? And okay, let's talk about the Bible. So now she's in our Bible discussion group, and we're going through Luke. And she didn't have the game that we were playing, so somebody in the channel bought her the game, and then she was in the voice chat. And so we were voice chatting while I'm reading through Luke 6 and talking about, the law, and like I was able to relate some stuff. We've had some interesting discussions during that. When we got to the part with in I think 7 where there's the demon possessed man, and he's like thrashing in the graveyards or whatever. And I was kind of going into like, I know this kind of sounds crazy. And she's like, no, like that actually makes a lot of sense. I feel like I've had family members that have gone through something similar. Like that part actually made sense. It's more the like, I don't necessarily believe that Jesus actually cast them out. Like it's just a totally different like conversation. But these are things I get to actually have conversations about, because we're focusing on non-Christians, not just Christians. And so my conversations are going to be based off of, let's not go. I try not to, I don't want to even like read too far ahead into things. I would rather it just be, here's what it is. And do you have questions?
I'm assuming, and you never mentioned the name. I don't want you to mention her name. I don't even know if that I got the handle right or whatever it's called. I'm assuming this person's probably not going to walk into a physical church building anytime soon.
No. She's told me, it's funny because she's actually one of the biggest. So she's one of the biggest people for saying that it's a church. Like that saying that our Twitch is a church, because everybody in chat will be like, well, I don't go to church or whatever. And she says, no. Like she'll jump in and be like, no, I don't go to church. You don't understand. Like I'm not a churchgoer or anything. But like this can be your church family because it's got community and it's got where they're learning and they're loving and like it's actually caring. And so I wouldn't go to a church, but like this is actually a good place for you to be if you don't want to go to church. Like this is a good church. So she calls it a church before I did. Like I'm still like over here in Christian world, like I don't know if this is a church, but she's convinced as a Satanist that it's a church and it's the only one that she's willing to go to. So I'm not gonna like one way or the other, but just, she thinks it's a church.
Love Clan, the digital church where, Satanists are excited to attend and
I don't know
engage
if that's good or bad.
in biblical conversations, biblical discussions.
Yeah.
Man, I think that's beautiful. I think you're, and whether the Holy Spirit leads her to a place of understanding or whether you're planting seeds for a future. I mean, God knows, we don't. But the fact that you're engaging in digital community, that you're reaching a demographic, a type of person, an age that's not engaging in the physical buildings. I love what's happening here. And I know your heart from this, where you're not, you're a former staff guy at a physical church. You're not doing this to demean or downcast the idea of physical church, but more towards you're trying to reach a different person, which obviously from this story, my gosh, that's that person. Shoot, if that person walked into a physical building, how quick is the guest services people going to walk them out of the building?
Sure.
So I love that story. Pulled the thread a little bit on something here, and I know you've gone back and forth in this. Do you consider yourself? I don't want to paint the picture of finality here because it's fluid and nobody knows. Are you a digital church? Ecclesiologically, do you feel like you're lining up to that X number of months into this? Is it more of a digital missionary? Like what's your current vibe?
I would go with that. This feels as close as I've ever felt to Acts, like you were saying.
Wow.
Like go to another country. Like, I feel like I'm in a totally different culture. Like they speak a different language. The way that they talk about games and the way that they relate with people. And it's just a totally different place. And it just feels more like Acts because I'm actually engaging on a daily basis with people. That's the hardest part, I think, for local church is, we've said it till our face is blue, but like the 1 hour on Sunday, not that like all churches do that and they can do small groups and whatever, but I am just like, so in these people's lives at this point. Like you've seen how often I stream like all the time. I'm literally going, off this stream or off of this and I get to go stream and I'll be streaming till I pass out, and,
it's a podcast. I want to drill in a little bit here. Let's put numbers on this. It's 3:00 in the afternoon Eastern.
Yeah.
You're good. I've seen you normally broadcast like around 4 or 5 in the afternoon.
4 my time. Yeah.
Yeah. 4. And I feel like I've seen you, cause I don't sleep at night. 2, 3 in the morning's not that unusual to go that late.
Oh no. I almost always go 2, 3. I set it as like 10 is my end, but then I consider it after hours after that. And that's where we can just do whatever. And so the goal is like, that way people have an out where they can go to sleep. I think what I'll probably start doing is, I don't know. We'll decide. Anyway, I need to decide when I'm going to pray for people because I have a hard time because I'll very regularly go 4 p.m. to 8 a.m. Like I won't go to sleep till 8 a.m. so that I sleep long enough that then I wake up and it's time to stream again. So for the last 6 months, I would say it hasn't been hard for me, especially because COVID's been happening. We're supposed to be quarantined anyway. But I've pretty much just like lived my life online of like, let's just live stream all the time and whatever I'm doing. And it makes it, I know that's not possible for a lot of people because they have families. Like, and I've just been like, hey, you guys are my family. Like we're going to hang out. We're going to chat. And I have a local family that I will sometimes say like, hey, stream, I'm going to be late because I'm going to go hang out with my local family, or I'm going to go get coffee with my sisters or whatever, you know. But for the most part, yeah, like I see these guys so often that I mean, I accidentally did a 24-hour live stream one time because I didn't realize what the time was. And then I looked at it and was like, I've been live for 20 hours. I might as well do 24 at this point, just to like say that I did it, you know, like I'm live way a lot. But
I mean, that's amazing. Just even the practicalness of it. I mean, let's call it 8 hours a day. You were spending 8 hours a day, not working towards producing an event or a weekend service. You're 8 hours a day. You're engaging in conversations with people, broadcasting, building relationships with people, being involved in their lives in a community where they're wanting to be open and engaging in those conversations. And they're open to this idea of connecting to a digital church, even to the point that a Satanist is arguing and validating the fact that just sounds weird. The Satanist is validating the church. But at the end of the day, they're looking for something like that. The idea of being part of a digital church community, the people you're reaching, that's not a foreign concept. They want that. They're hungry for that. That's encouraging to me. Like whether or not physical churches today, lead pastors, old missiologists will validate whether or not that's an expression of church or not. It's funny. I'm caring less and less about trying to prove the existence as much as celebrating the stories of what you just told me of a Satanist who's reconciling and trying to figure out what she believes and is wanting to get involved with a digital expression of church to seek to find some of those answers. Like you're the poster child, bro. That's incredible.
Well, it just reminds me of like when you say that, like I'm trying less and less to validate or to whatever, you know. I think the same way with like with Jesus. They're like, yeah, it's like with the drunkards and like the tax collectors and stuff, and like, you know, I remember even like the people that are around him, apostles, being like, yo, that's not the right way to do that. Like, if you do that, that's not going to be popular. And like, don't go, you know, pulling them aside. Hey, you shouldn't say it that way, because if you say it, you know, and it's like, get behind me, Satan. Like, that's not, you do not get what, you know, the goal is. And so I feel the same way with this kind of now, where like you're saying, whatever, like if somebody wants to call it a mission, that's fine. I would say, let's stop worrying about the like words and say, because the words are what? Well, let's worry about the why. And like, why do churches exist? Churches exist for the purpose of leading people, for discipleship, for growing, for hearing from the word, for moving towards. And if you think about like why churches exist, then look at those and go like, am I being successful doing those things? Because then you can call it whatever you want. You can call it a Denny's. I don't really care because if I'm doing it successfully, then you put whatever name you want on it. Like, and so that's like, there's the people that I am trying to reach, don't want to go to church anyway, was something that we talked about, I think earlier. It's actually funny. It might hurt me. You might think that you're being like snide and like, it's not calling it a church, and it's not a church because a church needs to blah, 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 or whatever. I'm like, you don't realize that most of the people that I'm trying to reach, if I called it a church, they wouldn't come. Like the way that all the rules that you put on what church is actually means they don't even want to be there. It's more like, I'm just here to like reach people. And if you want to call that a church, that's fine. But if you don't want to call it a church, they probably didn't either. And that's also okay, because I'm still reaching them. So it is a, it can get hard, because obviously, like you mentioned, we've had a lot of people that have been kind of against in the past. Some of the things that we were doing, not even against it. I think they were just against like calling it a church. And I realized I didn't care. I don't even need to call it a church. It doesn't matter to me anymore. So yeah, I don't, I'm fine calling it a church. I think it is a church, in that I think it's very, very close to what Acts is describing of a group of people, koinonia, the idea of having people in close proximity who are engaging in all ways, giving as each other has need. That I'm on the receiving end of that for the first time. Where like normally I would give to others as a need. I'm now in need. Like I live in a basement. I don't have funds. This is my only job. And there are people that are supporting me financially. And that's like amazing. It's the first time that that's happened. We've mentioned before that I don't have a donations tab. For the first time, I'm having donations because I don't have a job and I'm doing this full time. And I finally, 5 years later, feel called to do that. And it's been cool to see people that are in the ministry, like people that are seeing what's happening, seeing how I'm praying for pigs, seeing that people are coming to our Bible study Bible discussion, who never would have normally. And they're like, I want to be a part of that. And so they are helping me financially. So far, I'd say Twitch is paying for my meals. It's like enough to kind of pay for like food and stuff like that. And I still feel like I need to get another like side hustle or something like that can help if I want to ever move out of the basement that I'm living in, as cool as it is, you know? So that might be the case, but for now, I just praise God that I'm able to do what I'm doing, and we'll do it for as long as we can. So
awesome. Yes. So much good here. By the way, in the show notes, we'll put links to Jate's website and information, things like this. You know, it's maybe a weird plug. I don't know that I've ever done this on the podcast, but it's into the year 2020. If somebody out there is listening, it's like, hey, I want to make an end of the year gift. We'll put links to it in the show notes. Like, give money to Jate, man. He's living in his basement, at the house, and he's got a really nice setup. But nice. I mean, help a guy out. Maybe there's an option to do something there. So, hey, listen, this has been a great conversation. Every time I talk with, I love having you're probably one of my favorite guests that we've had on. Just super chill, super relaxed. Oh my gosh. I'm feeling the love, man. Just like deep down inside. Or maybe that's the COVID cough I have. I'm kidding. I don't have COVID. That was inappropriate. I'm sorry. Hey, let's do this to wrap up, man. Like this is just so golden. In the show notes, we'll go back and we'll include all the links to the previous conversations. Like this is just such a rich ongoing conversation, seeing this digital expression of church. I mean, I think literally get born on and through these conversations, right? As I think we were having conversations before you're even getting started and different steps along the way. So
that's how I reached out to you originally, is because I saw one of your blog posts. I Googled, I think, online small groups. Oh, my Google's activating when I said that. I Googled like online small groups, and your thing popped up as like it wasn't a podcast. It was like just a post that you had done with somebody, and somebody was trying it or something. This was before COVID for sure. And I was like, hey, I'm just curious, like, have they tried it again? Is it working? Is it whatever? And then we started doing it and trying it. And it's been a long time going since that. So yeah.
Love seeing it grow. Love the fact that now you're multiplying and starting to challenge some others to step up and grow into it. And you've definitely have been a resource for others, even as I'm working with current church planners that are getting started in this and telling some of your stories and getting you connected with some of those. The future is bright. And so we're literally paving the path right now for this stuff. And so it's golden. Hey man, just as we're landing the plane here, any closing thoughts? You have said it all. You are good.
There's always something else, but
you leave everything on the table, bro. You're like on the field. You're done. You've given it your all, and you're ready to wrap. So
I'm open to questions. If anybody has questions,
we'll put his contact info in as well, and we'll find. I tell you what, send me. I'm sure I can find it. But if you've never watched a Twitch stream, watch him on Twitch. Like we'll put the links in there. Honestly, like once again, it's not my generation. I don't know that I really understand what's going on. Like I think I see the game. I see the chat. I really don't understand why there's like 50 different Pokemon running around at the bottom of the screen, and one of them has my name on it. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but it's intriguing to me. And on top of that, just even the interface. But on top of that, it's intriguing. Like this is how that generation or those generations connect. engage. That's how they have, like, to use that as a front door. As a 43-year-old dad of two, I'm not like, there's no way I would as a person connect with this. That being said, I can totally, whenever my kids see it running, Daddy, what's that? And they're enthralled with it. Like they're watching it. They want to watch it with me and want to, like, one of them was funny. My son was like, can I chat with them? And I didn't have it hooked up on the Apple TV. And I was like, no, you can't right now. But he's like, he wants to get back into it. So, you know, my son may become your biggest fan out there in Twitch. So we'll include that information. But, you know, super excited about the road that you're on, the lessons that you're learning, and the you know, your opportunities that God has in store for you. Love your heart, love your passion for following the Spirit. And honestly, I've been praying for you. We'll continue to pray for you specifically, that God's got. That God will keep driving you and directing you as you're figuring out how to have these paths and connect with Satanists and get them plugged into your. That's just so much. Hey, so we're going to wrap here. Jate, man, thanks for jumping on this. Love you, bro. For Jate, this is Jeff at the Church Digital and Stadia Church Planning. Thanks for joining us here for the pod, and we'll see you next time on the show. You all have a good day.